Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monique. If you are new here, do well to click on the red button below to subscribe. And to all my subscribers, I say thank you for the support. In these tutorials, we'll be learning how to make the cycle dress with armhole princess darts bustier and a front loop. So let's get into it. So I'll be using the 6 yards of cotton Ankara fabric for these tutorials. They are both 3 yards each. I'll be drafting it on this lining before transferring it to the fabric. So I've gone ahead to fold it into two. This is the front and the back, and I took the shoulder line on the front and the shoulder line on the back also. I also went ahead to take the zipper line. So I used the bust divided by 4 plus 6 inches for seam allowance. First measurement I'll be taking is the neck width. I'm using 4 inches, and the neck depth I'll use 3.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and connect it. Then I'll take the shoulder width. The shoulder width is 15 divided by 2. It will give me 7.5. I added half an inch. That's 8 inches. So I came down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and I'll connect it to the neck width. From the shoulder slope, I'll take the chest line. I'm using 8 inches. Then from this point, I'll use 9 inches. Then I'll take the shoulder to bust point, which is 11 inches. Shoulder to under bust, I'll be using 14 inches for this measurement. Then shoulder to waist, I'll be using 17 inches. I'll add extra half an inch. That's 17.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and connect the lines. Now I'll place the shoulder width on the chest line, and I have 8 inches. So I'll mark it here, and I'll take a straight line to meet the chest line. Then I'll come up by 3 inches here for our armhole. I'll come up by 3 inches, and I'll come in from this point by 0.75. After doing that, I'll slant the line to meet the 0.75. Then I'll take the bust circumference. Quarter of my bust is 9.5. Then I'm adding extra 3.5 inches for seam allowance. So the bust is 38 inches. Quarter of 38 is 9.5. I added 3.5 inches. So what I have on the chest line, I'll place it on the bust line. Then on the under bust, my under bust is 31 inches. Quarter of 31 will give me 7.35. So I'll add extra 3.5 inches for seam allowance. Then on the waist is 32. Quarter of 32 will give me 8 inches. I'll also add 3.5 inches for seam allowance. So I'll go ahead and take the armhole. Then I'll connect the lines. So now I'll be taking the bust span measurement, that is nipple to nipple on the bust point. So my bust span is 8 inches divided by 2 to give me 4. I'll add extra half an inch, that's 4.5 inches. So I'll also place it on the under bust and also on the waist. And I'll take a straight line. Then the next thing I'll do, this is the bust point, the under bust, and the waistline. So on the under bust line, I'll come in by 2.25. Here you can use 2 inches or 2.25 depending on the bust. I'll also place it on the waist. That's the 2.25. Then I'll connect it to the straight line. After doing this, I'll slant it to meet the bust point here, like so. Then the next thing I'll do, I'll also slant it to the armhole line here. That's this 3 inches line I came up with earlier. I'll connect it this way. That we are trying to create our bust. So I'll come down by 1 inch from the bust point. Then I'll shape it this way. I'll create a curve. That's a cup for our bustier. Then I'll also do the same thing and connect it to the armhole like so. So I'll extend the line by 2 inches. That's from the armhole line. I extended it by 2 inches. Then I'll create another dart on the armhole. That is to avoid gape. But before I do that, I'll just use my armhole curve to shape this like so. You can also use your free hand, it's not compulsory. So now I'll be creating the dart on this point here. I'll come in by 1 inch here. Then I'll just connect it to the bust points. I'm creating a dart to avoid gape on the chest line or on the armhole area to avoid gape. So this is it. So I'll just trace it to this point like so. Then I'll reshape the armhole. So I'll be rechecking the measurement to avoid shortage. So what I'm going to do on the waistline, my waist is 32 divided by 2 to give me 8. So from here to this point, that is before the dart, I have 4.5. So I'm going to skip this dart and I'll continue taking the 4.5. I'll place the 4.5 here and I'll check what I have. So I have around 9 inches. So if I use this, I'm going to have a shortage. So what I'm going to do to avoid shortage, I'll add 2 inches extra for seam allowance. So I'm going to mark my 2 inches here. So the reason why we are having shortage is because of these 2 inches we are taking out for our bustier. So we've replaced it back. Now on the underbust is 31. To cut off 31 will give me 7.75. So I also have 4.5 here. I skipped this dart and I placed the 7.5 here. I have excess of 2 inches. I'll just place extra 2 inches also. Then on the bust is 38. Cut off 38 will give me 9.5. So I have excess here, which is okay. So I'll just add 1 inch and connect it. So we've added allowance to our bustier. So I'll go ahead and cut it out. So I'll start by cutting out the center front. So I'll be removing this dart. Then I'm going to notch the bust point and the underbust here. Then I'm going to trim this excess out. That is our dart. I'll also notch the bust point. So this is our front panel. So now I'll be drafting the back panel. I used 1 inch for the zipper allowance. So from the shoulder point, I'll take the back half length, and for mine, the back half length is 16 inches. So I'll place the front panel on the back. I'll make sure this center front is on the 1 inch zipper allowance. Then I'll place this here. So on this dart line, I'll make sure it tallies like this. I'll place them together so that it will tally. Then this excess on the front, I'm going to shift it to this point. Remember, our back doesn't have a bust, so I'll make sure this side is aligning together with the center front. Then I'm going to fold this excess on the bust. I'll pin it up. Then I'm going to cut it out. I hope you understand. So I'll follow this point. So this is our back. As you can see, we've eliminated the bust. Then I'm going to trim out this excess here. Then for the back neckline, I'm going to use 2 inches for the neckline. Then I'll trace it to the neck width and cut it out. So this is our back panel. Then on this back half length, I'll come in by ½ inch or 0.75. So I'll come in, then I'll slant it to the neckline. We are doing this to avoid zip bulge on the back. Remember, our back is not straight, so I'll trim this out. So this is our back panel. So we have this for the back. As you can see, we made it very easy. So this is also the front panel. I'll be drafting it on a fabric. I placed the center front and the center back on the pink fabric and the side on the pattern fabric. So I'll go ahead and trim it out. So we are not adding any seam allowance because we've already added all our seam allowance. So I'm going to notch the bust point and under bust. So this is our front panel and our back panel. Now I'll be drafting the lower part on a lining. So this is our lining. I'm going to fold it into 2 on bias. I'm folding it on bias. Then I'll also refold it again like this into 4. So we have 4 folds. Now half of my waist is 16 inches. So 16 divided by 4 will give me 4 inches. So I'm dividing by the 4 folds here. That is half of my waist by the 4 folds. So when I place 16 divided by 4, it will give me 4. I'll add extra 1 inch. That is 5 inches for seam allowance. So I'll go ahead and connect it this way. So I'll cut it out. So now I'll be taking the length of the dress. So the length I'm working with here is 33 inches. I'm adding extra 2 inches. That is 35 inches. The full dress is 50 inches. 50 minus 17 for the top will give us 33 inches. So this is the front panel. So I'm going to check the waist because I need it to have excess. So I have around 19 inches here, which is okay for me. Then I'm going to use it to cut out the back. So I've gone ahead to cut out the back. I made the back 1 inch wider. So this is the front panel. So the next thing I'm going to do is to place the top of the dress on this folded part of the skirt. so that I can get the exact dart line here. So I'll get an accurate dart line, then I'll get the midpoint of these folded parts. I'll get the midpoint, and I have around 13 inches. So I'm going to place it here. That's the midpoint of this line. I'll take it and I'll take a straight line. So I'll cut this out. I'll repeat the same thing for the back. I'll also mark it out, then I'll trim it out. So this is our front panel and our back panel. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to draft it on the fabric. So I'll just go ahead and trim it out. So I added extra inches for seam allowance. So this is the other panel. So I've cut out the front and back. So this is our lower part. This is the lower part, I beg your pardon. So this is the other one. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to attach interfacing to the dress. So here we are. I've gone ahead to add interfacing to the lining and to the main fabric. So for the main fabric, I used a black hairstay because I don't have enough white hairstay. So this is the front panel. Now I'll be cutting the breast pad. So I don't have access to a wording for a breast pad, but I'll be using the hairstay for alternative. So I'll place it this way. What I did was I placed it this way and I traced it from the chest line, and I divided here into two, and also I traced it on the underbust and shaped it to get the pad. So I cut out multiple, about 4 of it, to make it firm. So I'm going to iron on it to make it thick or firm. So on the center front, I also did the same thing. I traced another hairstay from the chest line and I cut it from the underbust. So I cut out 4 of this. I'll also be ironing it on the dress. Then I'll cut out the excess. Then I'll do that and show you. So I've done that. I've attached the hairstay on the center front. I've also done the same thing. As you can see, it just helps us create a wording for our bustier. So this is the side, the 2 sides. I made it thick. Now I'll be sewing it on the dress, but before then I'll be attaching a loop to the dress, that's to the center front. So I cut out a strip of fabric by 1.5 inches, that is the width, and the length is about 60 inches. So I'm going to fold it by half an inch. Then I'm going to fold the other side also by half an inch. After doing that, I'm going to double fold it like this. So I'm going to make a tiny strip for our loop. So I'm going to sew these points all the way to the full length. So I made a long strip about 60 inches long so that I'll have excess for our loop. Then I also cut out another strip with the second fabric. I'll be using this one as the strip on the loop. So this will be longer. I think I'll make it around 120 inches long. So I've sewn the strip. I made it like 1/4 inch. So I'll be using it for the loop. So I'll be attaching it on the side, that's on the center side here. So I'm just using this as a guide to know where the loop is going to start from. So I'll just mark this point here. So I'll be giving 2 inches space on each line. So from this point, I'm going to take 2 inches. I'm going to mark it here. Then I'll mark another 2 inch all the way to the full length. So from this point, that's on the waist, that's the lower part, I'm going to come up by half an inch because I'll be joining the dress from that point. Now I'm going to cut the strip by 3 inches. So I'll cut it out. So I've gone ahead to cut 3 inches each. So what I'll do, I'm going to fold it this way. I'll twist it this way, and I'll attach it from on this mark here. So I'll pin it up. I'll continue doing it for the other ones. I'll fold it this way. I twisted it like this. Then I'll place it on this 2 inches mark. Then I'm going to pin it up. So I'll do the same thing for the other strips. So I'll pin it up. I'll do it all the way like this, and I'll secure it with a pin. So after doing this, I'm going to top stitch this point here to secure it. Then what I did on this side, I'll repeat it on the other side. So guys, I've gone ahead to top stitch the loop on the dress, and I've also repeated the same thing on the other side, as you can see. Now I'll be attaching the side panel to the center front. So I'll place it together like this. That's good side to good side, and I'll start sewing it from the lower part. So I'm securing it with a pin. So we'll have this when we sew it. We'll have something like this. So I'll repeat the same thing on the other side. I'll be sewing it by 1/2 inch. I'll also sew the lining by 1/2 inch. This is the center back. This is the zipper allowance. So I'll repeat the same thing. I'll be sewing the side panel to the center back by 1/2 inch. I'll do the same thing for the lining, and I'll show you when I'm done. So guys, I've done that. I've attached the panels together. This is the center, front, and the sides. So this is the back panel. I decided to sew the center back. I did a loose stitch for the zipper allowance. I'll lose it later on. So this is the lining of the center back. So this is the front panel. That's the lining for the front, center front. So this is our dress. So I've gone ahead to give it a good press. So now on the skirt, that's the lower part, I'll be joining the side panel also to the center front. I'll be sewing it by 1/2 inch, good side to good side. I'll sew it to the full length. I'll repeat the same thing for the back. So guys, I've done that. I've joined the panels together. So this is the center back. I left 9 inches for zipper allowance. So what I did, I divided the center back into 2 equal half, and I joined it back by 1 inch. So this is the center front. So now I'll be attaching the top part of the dress to the lower part. So I'll make sure that line is aligning here. I'll make sure it tallies together like this, so that we'll have a clean finishing. Then I'm going to sew it by 1/2 inch all the way. Then I'll repeat the same thing for the back. So this is the back panel. I'll attach it. Remember I said I did a loose stitch on the center back. So I'll just open it up and place it like this so that it will align. I'll place it, I'll pin it up. Repeat the same thing for the other side. Then I'll also sew it by 1/2 inch. So I'll do that and show you. So guys, we've done that. I've attached the top to the lower part, so we have a full dress now. As you can see, it's aligning. So this is the back. I repeated the same thing. So this is the center back. I'll open this part later on. So this is our front and back panel. Now the next thing I'm going to do is going to have a pocket, side pocket. So I'm going to fold another fabric into 2. Then I'll come up by 8 inches, 8 or 9 inches. So let me use 9 inches. Then for the width, I'll be using 7.5 inches. So I'll place my palm on it this way, and I'll trace it out to get our pocket. So I'll trim it out. So I'll cut out 2. I've gone ahead to cut out 2. So it's on a fold. So I'll turn it to the good side like this. So I'll be sewing this point here. I'll stop by 1 inch. That's before the end of the pocket. I stop by 1 inch. So this is the good side. So I'll be attaching it to the dress later on, but before I attach the pocket, I'm going to attach the zipper to the dress. So remember I left 1 inch for zipper allowance, so I'll be sewing it on the 1 inch mark. So I've done that. I've attached the zipper to the dress. So this is our back panel. So I'll be attaching the lining of the back to the dress. That's good side of the line will be on the good side of the fabric. So I'll be sewing it by 1/4 inch on the neckline. I'll go ahead and pin it up. So I'll be sewing it by 1/4 inch. So I'll be sewing this together. So after I sew the neckline, I'll place the lining and the fabric together on the zipper line here. So I'll be sewing before this line here. I'll sew it together. Let me pin it up. So we'll have something like this. If we turn it to the good side, we'll have something like this after we sew it. Then I'll go ahead and repeat the same thing on the front panel. So I'll place the lining on the fabric, good side to good side. I'll be sewing it on the neckline by 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do, I'll sew it and show you. So guys, I've done that. I've attached the back panel, that's the back lining, to the dress. So what I decided to do, I joined it on the waistline because I don't want the lining to be on the lower part. I just wanted it to be on the top of the dress. So I repeated the same thing on the front panel. I joined the lining to the waistline. So the next thing I'm going to do is to sew the shoulder. So I'll place the front and back together. I'm going to open it up this way. I'll open the shoulder on the center of this shoulder, that is in between the lining and the fabric. On this stitched part, I'm going to make sure it aligns. So I'll place it together this way, and I'll pin it up. So I'll be sewing it by 1/2 inch. I'll repeat the same thing on the other side. I'll open it up and I'll pin it together and I'll sew it. I've done that. I've stitched it by 1/2 inch. So I'll turn it to the good side. So this is what I have. We've joined the shoulder. The next thing I'll do is to join the front and back together. But before then, I'm going to take the measurements. So the round bust, half of the round bust is 19.5 inches. That is 38 divided by 2 will give me 19.5. So when I mark it here, I have excess of 5 inches. So 5 divided by 2 will give me 2.5. So I'll place 2.5 here and 2.5 here. Then on the underbust, the underbust is 31. 31 divided by 2 will give us 15.5. So I will mark it here, and I also have excess of 5 inches. So I'll mark 2.5 inches here and 2.5 inches here. Then on the waist is 32. Quarter of 32 will give us 16. I have excess of 3 inches, so I'll divide it into 2. I'll place 1.5 inches here and also here. So I'm trying to mark it out. So I'll take the 1.5 inches all the way to the full length. Then what I'm going to do on the waist, I'll come down by 3 inches because we are going to attach a pocket to it. So my pocket will start from this 3 inches mark. Then from this mark, I'll come down by 7 inches. So our pocket is going to stop on this 7 inches mark from here. So I'll leave this part open. Then I'll sew it from here. That's from the 7 inches all the way to the full length because we'll be attaching our pocket. So I'll go ahead and sew it, repeat the same thing on the other side, and come back and show you. So I've joined the 2 side seams, and I also went ahead to reshape the armhole. Remember this side I told you about? This side for the pocket, I left it open. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach the pocket. So this is our pocket. Remember we've stitched it earlier on. So what I'm going to do, I'll tuck it in good side to good side. Then I'll make sure this part I left open. Remember I left 1 inch open. I'm going to place it here like so. So I'll make sure it tallies. Then I'm going to pin it up. Then I'll do the same thing on the other side. That's on the back. I'll place it this way, and I'm going to pin it up also. So I'll be sewing it by 1 inch. What I did here, I'll repeat it on the other side. So I've done that. I've fixed the pocket to the dress. So this is the other side. So let me turn it to the wrong side. So this is our pocket. We've attached it. So this is our dress. So now we'll be fixing the sleeve. So I'll go ahead and fold another fabric into 2. So the sleeve, I'm going to cut it like an A-line sleeve. So I'm going to from the folded part here, I'll come down. That's from the beginning. I'll come down by 4 inches. Then I'll take the armhole round. The armhole round is 16 divided by 2 will give me 8 inches. So I'm going to add extra 2 inches for seam allowance. So after doing that, I'm going to slant it. That is from the beginning here, from the folded part. That's from the top, I beg your pardon. I'll slant it to the seam allowance. Then I'll get the midpoint of this slanted line. So I have 5.5 inches. So I'll curve it to the midpoint here. Then I'll slant it to the seam allowance. So this is our sleeve. So from this point, I'll just take it all the way down. Like I said, it's an A-line sleeve. So I'll cut it out. The length of the sleeve is around 25 inches. So So I'll trim it out. Then we have this. Then from the I'm going to attach an elastic on the middle of the sleeve, that's on the center of the sleeve. So I'll go ahead and mark it here. So I've marked it. I took 12 inches, so I marked it from this 12 inches mark. Then the width I have here is around 27 inches. Then I'll be attaching the elastic here. I'm attaching it on the wrong side of the dress, so I cut it by the elastic. I cut it by 12 inches. So I'll be sewing on top of the elastic. I'll sew it and stretch it. I'll sew it and stretch it till I get to the end. So I'll repeat it here and I'll show you. So I've attached the elastic to the dress, that's to the sleeve. I stitched it on the center of the sleeve, remember. So this is the second sleeve. So I'll turn it to the other side and I'll sew it by 1 inch, like so, all the way to the end. So let's do that. I've done that. I've stitched it by 1 inch and I'll turn it to the good side, and we have this. Then on the hemline, I'm going to attach another elastic to it. So the elastic, I'll be cutting it by 8 inches. That's the width of the elastic, or rather the length of the elastic. I cut it by 8 inches. I'll top stitch this part here. So I've done that. I've top stitched the elastic. Then I'll attach it. I've gone ahead to weave the hemline of the sleeve, so I'll place it this way. I'll place it like so, and I'm going to fold it by 1/2 inch here. So I'll make sure the elastic is inside the folded part. So I'll sew it and I'll be stretching the elastic while sewing it. I'll stretch it and place it this way and sew on it all the way. So I've done that. So this is the full length, that's the hemline. I've attached the elastic to it. So this is the second one. So now I'll be attaching it to the dress. So I've gone ahead to weave the dress all around. Remember, I did not add lining to the lower part, so I've gone ahead to weave it and also the hemline. Now I'll be attaching the sleeve to the dress. So I'll place the good side to good side, and I'll make sure the side seam of the sleeve and the side seam of the dress are aligning, and I'll sew it and show you. So guys, we fixed our sleeve, as you can see. So this is the full dress. We're almost done. So the next thing I'll do, because I've weaved the hemline, I'll just fold it by 1/2 inch, and I'm going to sew it all the way to the end. So we've done that. We fixed our dress. We've hemmed the lower part. So I've also gone ahead to give it a good press, and the next thing I'm going to do is to attach this strip on the loop we made. So I cut it by 120 inches long, and I've stitched it by 1/2 inch. I repeated the same thing I did for the loop. So I'll place it this way from the beginning of the loop, and I'll place it on the other loop. So I'll make sure they are equal, that is the strip is equal, and I'll be interchanging it this way while fixing it to the loop. So I'll continue doing the same thing. I'll place it this way, then I'll pick the other side of the strip and fix it the other way. So I've done that. We've attached the strip to the loop, and we have this. So we are done with the dress. We fixed the loop, we fixed our sleeve, we've hemmed the full length, we fixed our zipper. We've come to an end of these tutorials. I hope it was helpful. Please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe and share. Thanks for watching.